What's up, all you beautiful people? I want to share with you something that I've been working on behind the scenes over the last probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 months with a close buddy, Moly, who runs a badass YouTube channel called Shibaang. Recommend you go check it out. He puts out a ton of really creative, beautiful videos. Really, really good stuff. But we've been working on this very special thing called the Story Bible. And I wanted to share with you, because we've been recording behind the scenes as we've been creating this thing, kind of showing you how it went from ideation to actual creation. And we're going to be launching it later this year. But I wanted to share with you some ideas around the Story Bible that can help you as a founder or entrepreneur inside your business, because I believe that story is the source code of the human experience. I think it's the way that we understand everything that's happening around us, how we give meaning and context to the things in our lives. And depending on the stories we tell to ourselves and to other people, it's going to directly impact the amount of influence that we have. And at the end of the day, if businesses exist to, deliver value to somebody else, then a lot of that is going to depend on your ability to communicate that value to them about your product or service, and then communicate it in a way that the person retains it and they're impacted by it. And I think story is the vehicle that we get to do that through. The way I've always explained this to people is, story is like the operating system inside your mind. Like, there's a narrative going about who you are, about your product, why you did what you did, why you created this feature over that feature, what makes you better than the competition, right? All of these things are playing inside your mind. But I find in working with entrepreneurs, it's a real struggle to identify what are the key points of your story that are worth communicating, and then two, how to actually communicate them in a way that's compelling, that's insightful, and that is resonant. And so that's what we're working on in the Story Bible, is a way to help you, one, learn the mechanics of telling a good story. And in it, we break down 3 different types of story. We have your origin story, which is like the big, heroic, epic character arc of you, the individual, how it is that you came to be here, standing here at this moment in time, all the trials and tribulations and mountains that you've climbed, all the bloody orcs that you fought in the past, right? The origin story is the most powerful story that you have. And what's really cool about the origin story actually is not just that it has immense power for communicating in an influential way to other people, but it's the most powerful story that you can tell yourself. When you learn how to tell your story in a powerful way, it's empowering to you first and foremost, because at the end of the day, like, you have a story playing in your mind already, one way or the other, a story about who you are, how you got here, and all that stuff. But if it's not crafted in the most compelling and impactful way, you're leaving opportunity on the table to positively influence yourself. And so that's the first story that we're going to work on in the Story Bible, is helping you figure out what is your epic origin story. Number 2 is we figure out how to tell your core stories. And what I want to share with you right now is a little exercise that you can do to kind of determine what some of your core stories are. Because the way I think about a core story is that every human, let's rewind. Every business has like their mission statement, their value statement, their core values, right? Like, we believe in radical candor and hard work and, persistence, and customers always are right. Like, pretty much every Fortune 500 company under the sun has their corporate values. What I find, though, is that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders do not have their equivalent version, their own entrepreneur values. And if you don't have your own values like clearly defined, then number 1, you're going to live in misalignment with your core true values. You're going to do a lot of things on a day-to-day basis that aren't necessarily prioritizing and moving you in the swiftest line possible towards your values. If you know that, hey, I value mastery, creativity, playfulness, then every single day you can sit down to craft your day. When you sit down to figure out what's it mean to win the day, and say, I want to make sure that I make time for mastery and for creativity, and I need to make some time for playfulness. Bam. Now you're living in alignment with your values. That's the value of knowing what your values are, right? Second is the ability to communicate those values to other people, then allows them to see what you stand for. And at the end of the day, people do business with people. And if I know that you stand for creativity, mastery, playfulness, it's like, cool, I know something about you. I know what motivates you on a deep level. Now, it's one thing for me just to tell you, those 3 values, but the ability to communicate those 3 values in the form of a story, that makes them stick with you so that you remember in the future why creativity is so important to me, or playfulness, or why mastery is such an important thing. If I can't communicate it in a story, it's very unlikely that you're going to remember it, because like psychological studies confirm this over and over and over, that our retention of information improves tremendously when it's coached in the form of a story. Right. So the second thing that the Story Bible is going to help people with is figuring out what are your core stories. What are the 3 to 5 core values that guide your life, that have been there behind the scenes your entire life, molding you? And then how is it that you came to value those values? Right? Like, what was the inciting incident for creativity? You know, for me, one of the things I think about is when I was like 9 years old, I would spend the summers at my grandparents' ranch. And I was a kid with ADHD. So like every year in school, they would drug me with Ritalin. And then I would go to my grandparents' ranch, and they would let me off my Ritalin. And I would run free on the ranch and just have a good old time. And I remember my grandmother saying that that drug, Ritalin, was like caging my creativity, and that my summers were an opportunity for me to unleash this unlimited creativity. And I thought, oh, that's really cool, right? And I then started to build this identity as a creative thing. And so I would make things, I would write things, I would tell stories, and like I'd focus on creativity because it became this identity that my grandmother gave me to live up to, right? So what is your story that has like helped you solidify the values that you hold most dear? That's the second thing that we're going to focus on in the Story Bible. Origin story, core stories, and then we're going to focus on side quests. Side quests are all the other crazy things that happen to you in life. Like every moment of your existence is the opportunity for a story, right? You go to the bar, you go to on a first date, you're sitting around with your buddy just shooting the shit, right? And you tell stories. But the ability to communicate a good story and tell it in a compelling way is like what separates you from being the center of attention and being like, yeah, everybody, like, I feel like I am connected with this group of people. Or it's the difference of just being like, oh man, I'm talking, but nobody's listening. I feel invisible. Nobody hears me. Or everybody's just kind of like nodding and smiling, but they don't seem truly captivated or interested in what I have to say. And one of the things I've discovered is that nothing will make you feel more lonely than standing in a group full of people trying to communicate something that means a tremendous amount to you and that nobody seems to understand. Like it just falls on deaf ears. And so your side quests are, how do you take the raw materials, the raw ingredients of life, and transform that into an interesting story? Like right now, what story could I have from this particular experience, right? Well, it could be, you don't know this, but you know, when Anuj and I started recording, I was sitting right here, and we batch these. So I usually record 3 or 4 at a time. And if you go back and you watch the episodes where I am dressed like this, because I just got out of the gym, you will notice like, oh, in one of them, I'm sitting like 3 feet over here. Next one, I'm sitting right here. Next one, I'm sitting right here. The reason for that is because when we first sat down right there, Anuj wanted to get this really cool building in the background. It's really, really awesome. Well, by the time I sat down, the sun came over the crest of this building, blasted me in the eyes. You might see it happening right now. It literally just happened in this moment, right? And so we finished that episode. I moved over a couple feet, and then the sun shifted with me. So I had to move again. It's hitting me now. We're going to record another one. I'm going to have to move, right? There's a story there about the futility of fighting nature and how we're just trying to get a good shot, and everything keeps happening. The sun is chasing us, right? So you could craft that into an interesting story and tie that to some kind of meaning or moral or parable that then somebody takes with them, right? Now, I'm not saying it's a great story, but that's a story that you would you could imagine. You tell that story, one of those innocuous things that just occurred in life that's not particularly interesting, but your loved one later tonight, your wife or husband is like, hey, how was your day? And you're like, oh, fuck, we sat down to record and the sun kept hitting me in the eyes, kept having to move. It's like, fuck, right? That's not a very good story, but if you can tell it in a compelling way, they're going to go, oh, that's pretty funny, actually. I like that story. Or that was a good story, right? So that's the other part that we're going to focus on inside the Story Bible. Origin story, core stories, side quests, and then the mechanics of how to actually tell stories. It's going to be awesome. I'm pretty psyched about it. I'm thinking about it right now because Tuesdays are the day when I sit down with Moly. We work on this project, and we've been on it for many, many months now. Probably, yeah, about 7 months probably is my guess. And we'll probably launch it later this year, so stay tuned for that. If that's something that you would want more information on, if you find that interesting and you want to learn more about telling your story, crafting compelling narratives, then just go to anthonyvicino.com/story and just sign up for the waitlist. And that we'll send out more information. We'll send out some behind the scenes of how we've been actually making this thing. You can see some glimpses of what we're cooking with, but it's going to be this badass, gorgeous, beautiful journal that's going to be like a keepsake. You can keep it with you forever, have your stories stored inside of it, and become this precious little heirloom that helps you become a badass storyteller. Because at the end of the day, as Steve Jobs said, the storyteller is the most powerful person in the world. And I want you to be able to wield that power for good or for evil. It's up to you. I don't care. Obviously, I care a little bit, but that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll see you in the next episode.